This video is about how to fight corruption properly. The nature of corruption lies in human nature and, in particular, in the low level of development of human consciousness. Human consciousness is a personal attitude of a person to the external world, limited by the level of development of human thinking and intellect, which arises as a result of his awareness of himself as a rational being, different from the external world. The level of a person's understanding and awareness of the inadmissibility to commit unfair, immoral, and illegal acts depends on the level of development of his consciousness. The lower the level of development of a person's consciousness, then, it is more difficult for such a person to understand the inadmissibility of committing unfair, immoral, and illegal acts. Such a person more easily commits unfair, immoral, and illegal acts. The higher the level of development of a person's consciousness, the higher the level of his resistance to commit unfair, immoral, and illegal acts. The problem of corruption should be solved through the implementation of a set of measures, comprising upbringing, education, and punishment of members of society, with the aim to develop the consciousness of members of society. The proper fight against corruption should be divided into two parts: in the long-term and short-term historical perspectives. In the long-term historical perspective, the problem of corruption in human society can only be solved by raising the level of development of thinking, intellect, and consciousness of members of society. Taking into account the low level of development of consciousness of modern humanity, in the short-term historical perspective, the problem of corruption should be solved by implementing the following ideology. The elites of society are formed from members of society who have the highest level of development of thinking, intellect, and consciousness. The elites of society are not influenced by representatives of big capital and external forces. The elites of society are interested in the dynamic historical development of society. The elites of society do not use the oligarchic system of governance of society. Representatives of big capital are deprived of the opportunity to influence the system of governance of society. The elites of society do not use power for personal interests. The elites of society do not use corruption as a means of governing society. Lobbying and protectionism are prohibited at the legislative level. The use of effective measures of public control over the activities of the elites of society. Personnel for responsible positions are selected taking into account the level of development of consciousness of candidates for these positions. Creating favorable material conditions in society for members of society, that is, the ability to eat normally, take care of one's health, live in safety, etc. Creating favorable non-material conditions in society for members of society, that is, freedom of thought and speech, access to information and education, the ability to live and develop freely, respect for rights and freedoms in society. Developing education, science, and culture in society. Creating favorable conditions in society for raising the level of development of thinking, intellect, and consciousness of members of society. Creating favorable conditions for competition between members of society. Creating favorable conditions for competition within society in the social, economic, political, and cultural spheres of society. The impossibility or inexpediency of developing competition in certain spheres of society is compensated for by a more stringent system of managing these spheres of society. The system of upbringing and education of society provides for the development of thinking, intellect, and especially consciousness of members of society. Society stimulates members of society to develop their thinking, intellect, and consciousness. Creating a system in society to counteract everything that hinders the development of thinking, intellect, and especially consciousness of members of society. Creating in society favorable conditions for raising the level of spiritual development, justice, spiritual values, and morality of members of society. Creating in society of legal and social justice for members of society. creating in society of an independent and impartial court. Corruption is a subject of public censure. Society materially encourages members of society to provide information about facts of corruption. Application of severe punishment for members of society for corruption. The lower the level of historical development of society, the harsher the punishment should be. Application of harsher penalties for corruption of members of society on whom, due to their position in society, the fate of people depend, for example, an official, judge, prosecutor, policeman, elected office, etc. A civil servant convicted of corruption once is not allowed to work in the civil service system throughout his life. Detailed explanation and justification of the above theses and much more relevant information you can find in my theory of the nature of human and social development, disclosed in my book, Humans and Human Society, which is available at the link posted below in the description to this video.